Today's question is, what happens when your electric vehicle runs out of charge? So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Mike. I'm from Greenway Electric, and a question I get asked from time to time, what happens when an electric vehicle runs out of charge? Well, before I get into the answer to that question, the first thing I should mention is an electric vehicle will not suddenly run out of charge unexpectedly. The electric vehicles, they all have a battery monitor and a battery capacity gauge. They're going to show you how much charge you have in your battery, whether it's close to full or close to empty. And if you're approaching empty, it's going to give you some warnings on the screen. It's going to tell you that you're running low on charge, that you should try to find some charging stations nearby. It's also going to give you an estimated range in miles or kilometers of how far it thinks you can go. So if you're getting close to being out of range, some of them will also warn you that you're getting close to being out of range of of any of the electric vehicle chargers. What will also happen is once you've got the first warning, it's likely going to let you drive a few miles or kilometers, and then it's probably going to give you another warning saying, don't forget, you're running low on charge. You'll need to find a charging station fairly soon. And typically after that, you'll also have an indicator on your dashboard that's probably going to be blinking at you, just telling you that you're low on range or almost out of range. And then eventually it will get down to zero. And some cars will show you dashes or lines or zeros or blinking lights or something along those lines. But most cars will also have a little bit more range left in them because the manufacturers know that you may accidentally be low on charge and you may be searching for a charging station or trying to get home to get charged up. And so they've built in a little bit of extra range. And some manufacturers have more range and some have less. It just depends on how the engineers have programmed the car. So the point being is that you won't suddenly run out of charge unexpectedly. The car will not just shut down for no reason on the middle of the highway. It's going to give you a warning in advance before that happens. So, what happens if you do finally run out of range? Well, just like a gas car, it's going to come to a stop. And what the car typically does is it's going to switch from drive into neutral so that you can continue coasting. And now, by this point, hopefully, you've known that you're going to be running out of charge because the car's warned you. You may be already pulling off the road, or you may be in an area where you can safely pull over, and it's going to switch into neutral to allow you to coast until you run out of momentum, and then it's going to stop. What will also happen is the car won't entirely shut off because there's two battery systems in your electric vehicle. The one that's running out of charge is your large battery, the big battery, which is turning your wheels and usually running your heater or air conditioning. But there's also a small 12-volt battery in the car as well. And that will still allow you to turn the car on and off. It will allow you to shift into neutral or into park. It will also allow you to still have the lights on or the four white flashers. Your radio will still work as well, but I would suggest shutting that off. And I'd also suggest shutting off your fan for your climate control as well. And that battery is maintained by the big battery. So when the big battery runs out of power, that means the little battery, the 12-volt battery that runs those other accessories, is going to eventually run out as well. If you allow it to run entirely out, for example, if it's late at night and you have your lights on and you leave your lights on for an hour or two, that battery may become drained as well. So you have to be aware that that battery, of course, will not last an extremely long time, but it does allow you the opportunity to put on your four-way flashers or power your USB outlet in the car so that you have power to charge your cell phone to make an emergency call. And it will also allow the car to switch into neutral, which will be important if you're going to have to be towed. So then what do you do? Once you're out of power, you're on the side of the road, and you're stuck with nowhere to go, and you don't have any power left. Well, I guess you have a couple of options. One of them is to call a tow truck and get them to tow you to the nearest charging station or to home if home is nearby. Or you may also be able to call a towing company that has an onboard charging station on their vehicles or on their tow truck. The It's not very common yet, but I'm aware of a few that are out there that do have the ability to recharge an electric vehicle on the side of the road to give you enough charge or capacity in order for you to drive a few more miles to get to your home or nearest charging station. So, how do I know this is what happens to an electric vehicle when you run out of power? Well, I've done it myself 3 times that I can remember. And I've been driving electric vehicles since 2013, and I've had quite a few different ones. And I knew full well all 3 times I was right at the edge of the amount of charge I had, and I knew that help was nearby. I knew that it was not extremely cold, and I knew that I was taking a risk when I was ignoring all the warnings the car was flashing on the dashboard in front of me. I was just trying to get to my destination and take the risk of knowing that I might run out of charge. So the first time it happened to me was, it must be close to 10 years ago now. I was at work, and I went out for lunch, and I knew I had not very much charge. I did quite a few errands, did a lot of running around, and I was monitoring the battery with a OBD2 reader. I was monitoring the battery voltage, and I was ignoring what the car was telling me. The car was telling me I'm running low on charge, and the car was telling me I need to charge now, and the car was telling me to stop driving. But I proceeded to ignore that, and I just kept driving. And I thought I could make it all the way to do all my errands and then get back to work and plug in at work. But I was off on my calculations by about 2 blocks. So my car shut down about 2 blocks before I got to work. And it went into neutral, and I coasted another half a block. And then that was it. I was stuck. So fortunately, I was close to work, and some coworkers drove by. They just hooked up a tow rope to my vehicle. We put it in neutral and towed it to my workplace, and I was able to recharge the car at that point. The second time this happened to me is, again, this one, I was fully aware that I was running low on charge, and the car was flashing warnings to me saying, don't do that. But I was getting close to a friend's house, and I knew if I could make it there, I could just plug it in and hang out with them for a while. But unfortunately, about a half a kilometer from their house, it ran out of charge, and it came to a stop. So I just phoned them on the cell phone and said, hey, I ran out of charge. Hey, can you come down and can you bring your tow rope? And they said, sure, not a problem. So they came over, and we towed the car to their place and plugged it in, and it recharged there. The third time it happened, I was just trying to, experiment with the car, see how far I could actually run it beyond beyond when it was telling me I'm running out of charge. And again, I knew full well I was perhaps going to run out of charge. I was trying to get home, and I was several blocks from home, but I was passing nearby to a good friend's house, and I was only about a block from his house when the car finally ran out of charge. So I just phoned him and I said, hello, I need your help. And he popped over. And again, with the tow rope in neutral, we just towed it to my house, which was only a few blocks away. And then I plugged the car in and charged it. So fairly easy solutions to those 3 scenarios, knowing that I almost was likely to run out of charge. I suppose there's been other instances where I pushed it as well and didn't actually run out of charge, and I made it to my destination, so those didn't make this list. But those are the 3 instances where I ran out of charge. And again, if you're doing those kinds of experiments, if the car is new to you, do this in a safe space on roads that aren't being driven on a lot. Do it on a nice, warm, pleasant day where if you needed to walk somewhere, you could. Do it on a day when your cell phone is fully charged, and do it on a day when you know there's someone around that could maybe give you a hand if you needed. What you don't want to do is, in a snowstorm at midnight with your kids in the back seat and no one around to help you. You'd never want to take those risks. One of the other questions that comes up on this topic when you run out of battery charge is, do you ruin your electric car battery if you run it down to 0? And the answer is no. If you did that every day and you left it discharged and never charged it for weeks at a time, then yes, that could cause some damage to your electric vehicle. But The battery management system, which is basically an onboard circuit board or onboard brain in the car, will not allow you to intentionally or unintentionally damage the vehicle. So and that includes the battery. So what it's doing is it is shutting down the car before any damage occurs to the battery. So it's not allowing the battery to go too low of a state of discharge where it causes damage to the battery. Now, like I said before, though, you want to make sure that once you got down to that level where it's shut off, you don't want to leave it there for weeks at a time. You'd want to plug it in within a day or two and allow it to bring the charge back up. But the battery management system will not allow the battery to discharge too far so that it's causing damage. Maybe another point to remember in all this is it's not a typical situation you'll run into every day when you're driving your vehicle. What I do every evening is when I get home from work, I plug in my car and it's fully charged by the morning and I know how much range I have and how far I'm going. It's these one-off scenarios where I was experimenting and trying to go further than I knew the car was telling me it could, just to see how far I could go. And so this is not something that you're going to run into unexpectedly if you are driving an electric vehicle. I'd be curious to hear about your stories. If you drive an electric vehicle, have you ever run out of charge? Did you do it intentionally or accidentally? Did you think you could get to your destination and you didn't? Or were you just simply experimenting, seeing how far it would go? I'd be curious to know how far your EV would go after it said you have no more charge. And maybe I should also add that some of the EVs I've driven, they drive quite a long distance after it says you have no more charge left. So even when the battery capacity says you have 0%, it's really not correct. You actually do have some more capacity. But each electric vehicle is going to be different, and they're going to react differently in these different situations. And then it will also depend on what is your road conditions. Is it cold outside? Is it hot? Are you running the AC or heat? And those will all be factored into how far it will actually go beyond when it says you are running out of charge. So thanks for watching the video. I hope you found it helpful or informative. And if you did, I'd appreciate it if you can give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing for future videos. Thanks a lot for watching and have a great day.